So welcome everybody. My name is Jose Martinez and I'm the RCC director. So this house, Real Colegio Complutense, RCC as we know it around Harvard, is the Spanish center at Harvard, and we've been working for 27 years to connect the Spanish knowledge system with Harvard. We work with a number of centers around and schools around Harvard, and we also work with different partnerships. Actually today we collaborate and we have the honor to have this long-standing collaboration with the Abigail Adams Institute. So without further ado, I'm gonna give the floor to Desmond that will introduce you with the event that we have today. And he will also introduce the speaker. So thank you so much, Desmond, for putting this together.
Thank you, Samuel. Right. Well, as Jose Manuel already said, thank you to everyone for being with us. We have a phenomenal speaker that'll be joining us now, Sharif Younes. It's hard to separate the professional from the personal because I do count him as a very close friend, but because of that, I can attest to the knowledge that he has and the discipline he lives in his life. He's an extraordinary young man who has been living in the Boston area since 2013 when he graduated Bowdoin College. He's been working as a software engineer for various different startups, and now he works on a very large program for a local company called Localytics. But beyond that, his role here in the Cambridge community, he works with a professional mentoring program called Elmbrook. Elmbrook has certain ties, not only to the community here in Cambridge, but also to the institute that I work with, the Abigail Adams Institute. You can visit us and know more about us at visiting aaicambridge.org. We invite you all to find out more about our programming. Sharif works with us as one of our young professional fellows. We like to promote this talent that we find in the community, and that's why we worked with RCC to bring you Sharif. So no further ado, I give you Sharif Younes.
All right, thanks Desmond for that introduction, and thanks to the RCC and AI, the Abigail Adams Institute, for putting this on and giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about some ideas that have had a really profound impact on me over the past few years. So the core idea is how to work at your very best, and as a result, how to thrive both in study and in work. First, I'll discuss a mentoring program that I'm a part of, the one that Desmond mentioned, called the Elmbrook Mentoring Program, which mentors undergraduates and graduate students in the area, primarily Harvard and MIT students, as well as young professionals in work habits, how to work at your best, how to bring your ideals into your work. I'll present some overall trends in the mentees' improvement by showing some data that we've collected as we've tracked their progress, and then look at some specific cases of specific mentees that have performed well in our program and seen a lot of success and improvement. The next thing that I'll do is discuss the actual model that we teach at Elmbrook that we use to inform students on methods of optimal work, as well as the practical advice that we advise them on how to concretely approach their assignments and their day-to-day tasks. The last thing that I'll do is connect these ideas to ideas in business ethics, in particular the responsibilities that employers have to their employees and the responsibilities that employees have to their employers. How are they working together to help each other achieve their goals? So I'm going to jump right into discussing the Elmbrook Mentoring Program. I think this program provides a very interesting model for something that could be implemented in a corporate setting to help employees contribute the most to the company by working at their best and being as productive as possible, and also to help employers to give them a way to help their employees grow in skills and work habits through their work, find meaning and purpose in their work, and also to balance work with the other goods of life, with social life and family life. So let me first describe the program for you. So the program was started by a psychiatrist at Harvard Medical School. We have 6 mentors in the program. We're a mix of young professionals, Harvard graduates, MIT graduates, Bowdoin graduates, who have all been trained in these ideas in these principles and have spent a lot of time applying them practically in our day-to-day lives, in our workplace. So we've developed a questionnaire with 24 questions, and each one, here I'll give you an example of a question here. So this question, or a statement rather, I almost never complain. So it presents an ideal to the mentee in the program who's taking this questionnaire, and then has them rate themselves 1 to 10 on how well they perform. So the questionnaire consists of 24 questions distributed across 4 core areas: work-life balance, mode of working, collaborating with others, and ideals. If you want to check out the full questionnaire so you can have the text of the questions, you can go to this link, this third bullet point, bit.ly/Elmbrook inventory. And I should mention that, so this is a totally free resource, and we've actually seen a lot of success from people who just take this inventory every single week to be reminding them of the kind of ideal work habits that they can build, even without the mentoring program, the one-on-one mentoring program. And so that's the second part of the mentoring program, is the one-on-one mentoring that mentees, the students and young professionals, then do with their mentors. So the questionnaire that the mentees fill out every single week provides guidance for the one-on-one mentoring sessions. So it shows the trend in their progress in these key work areas and shows areas for improvement that can be discussed in the mentoring session. The mentors will also explain the optimal work principles in greater detail and discuss with them how to apply them concretely to a paper that you have coming up or a test that you have coming up. So how do you take the principles and apply them practically? So now I'm going to go through the results of the program by using the data that we've gathered from these questionnaires that people have been taking repeatedly. And in particular, I'm going to show it to you with an eye towards some questions that would be very interesting in a business context. So all of these questions are very interesting to corporations. So are mentees growing and doing better work? Are they growing in skills and work habits? Are they developing as people? And third is, do mentees find a healthier work-life balance? Are they more productive by applying these principles? And that does that enable them to then live a richer life where they incorporate social life and family life rather than having work push everything out of scope? So as I mentioned above, the questionnaire assesses mentees in 4 key areas. The 2 that I want to highlight here are mode of working and work-life balance. So mode of working has questions like, I rarely give in to distractions at work, time passes quickly when I work, I rarely complain about my work, things like that. And mode of working assesses how much time they have for other things. So do you get enough sleep? Do you exercise enough? Things like that. So the first graph here plots the average overall scores of mentees in their first 5 sessions. So the questionnaire, I think that one surprising thing about this is something that you don't often see associated with Harvard students, is their scoring in the 60s and 70s on things. But it's actually it's a very difficult questionnaire, and rarely do people come in with above a 70%. So when they start, the average score is a 60. And after 5 of these mentoring sessions, the score then climbs to a 76%. And again, if you want to see exactly what that looks like, I would encourage you to check out that link on the previous page to see the exact questions that appear on the questionnaire that they're taking. So the second slide that I'm going to show you with the data shows their performance specifically on mode of working. And I think this is very surprising, that mode of working is actually the lowest part. It's significantly lower than the other average sections. So what that means is even at a high-performing place like Harvard and MIT, students are not working efficiently. And so that's surprising at first, and I think a good explanation for it is the fact that these students are so talented that they can rely just on that talent and their intelligence to get by, but they've actually been able to get by with still very bad work habits. And once these work habits are addressed, we see a dramatic improvement across the entire questionnaire. Finally is work-life balance. So the first 5 sessions, mentoring sessions that we do with people, focus on mode of work. And as you can see in the previous slide, there was a dramatic improvement in mode of working in the first 5 sessions. But as you can see here, it also translates over to improved work-life balance. So by increasing their productivity in work, they make more time for other things. So they're getting more done in less time. They have time for more sleep, more exercise, as well as social activities. So these are the overall trends in the first 5 questionnaire scores that students take in the mentoring program. Now I want to look at some specific cases of actual individuals and show you their progress over time, over a broader time period. So this is case 1. And remember, these are our top performers, students or graduate students of top schools, Harvard and MIT, and they come in scoring at or below 60%. Through the mentoring program, they're now consistently scoring 95%. To give you a picture of what that looks like, these are people who, when they start, they have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, they complain about work, they don't get 7 hours of sleep because they're up late studying, they give in to distractions at work, and so on. But they've undergone a complete transformation to the point where now they jump out of bed in the morning. They love their work, they're productive so they're able to get enough sleep, and they're so immersed in their work that time passes quickly. Now I'm just going to jump through 3 cases here, very similar graphs, but the interesting thing to point out is how each of them increases. So this person increases relatively smoothly, their score. Other people are kind of up and down. But in all cases, we see starting at a very low score, steep improvement at the beginning, and then leveling off around 95% as these habits really solidify. Now I'm going to give a slightly different view of individuals' progress through the mentoring program. So this is case 4. So the first row is the header row. The second row below that shows their score in mode of working. So as you can see here, this person in the first 4 weeks of the program increased from scoring 36% on mode of working to 76% on mode of working. So it's quite an improvement. And what you can see here is that this person in particular, their work was crowding out other aspects of their life. So when asked, I usually get at least 7 hours of sleep, they gave themselves a 1 before entering the program. When asked to affirm, my schedule allows for sufficient periods of rest and downtime, they gave themselves a 5. And I think most dramatic, most staggering for something that you would see at Harvard is, my daily priorities reflect what matters most for me to have a meaningful life. So is this person fulfilled and happy? They give themselves a 4. After 4 weeks of mentoring, they're up to 10 on sleep, so they're getting enough sleep every single night. Their schedule gives them time for rest and silence, up to 8. And now they're actually engaged with their life. So their daily priorities reflect what matters most for them. They score themselves an 8 on that. So case 5, this one is slightly different. You can see it's just the first question that's different, but I just wanted to mix it up a little bit. So this one indicates sort of a lack of social engagement. So I actively seek out opportunities for having meaningful conversations with friends. They score themselves a 1 before session 1. So you can see the big increase in mode of working from 40% to 76%. And what that does is give them more time to then be seeking out conversations, seeking out social relationships. And similarly to the last person, schedule allows for increased periods of rest and silence from a 1 to a 10. Daily priorities reflect what matters most for me to have a meaningful life, 3 to 10. So case 6, this is a slight change from the other ones. So the 2 first questions measure their reliability, their sense of reliability. So when I tell someone that I will do something, I commit myself 100% to doing it, and I seldom keep people waiting. This person, when they came in, they rated themselves very low, 3 and 4. So what that means is that for years, this person had their schedule was getting out of control, so they couldn't complete the task that they said that they would take on, and they left people waiting because they were not finishing things up on time and having to run to the next thing and showing up late. After 5 sessions, this person gave themselves a 9 and a 10 on those 2 questions. So in just 5 weeks, going from being late to the majority of your obligations, to then never being late at all. I think it's a pretty impressive improvement from this person. Case 7 is another slight change of pace. So this person had a very negative view of their work. So they weren't engaged in their work, and they weren't viewing it in a positive light. So on this question, instead of getting anxious, I get energized by academic and social challenges, and I almost never complain. They give themselves low scores, 4 and 5, which means that rather than embracing the challenge of academics and social life to actually grow from it, to engage with it, they're scared of it. It gives them anxiety to think about those types of challenges. And then I almost never complain. So they have a habit of complaining about their work because they don't like it. Now in 4 sessions, they go from a 4 to a 10 and a 5 to a 10. So now they're embracing their work, they're embracing the challenges that they face in academics and in social life. Now, if I could distill the Elmbrook method down to one thing, to the foundation of Elmbrook's method, it would be this: focus. You have to focus at your best to do well in your tasks and to grow from them. So to illustrate what real focus looks like, I'd like you to think back to an activity, hopefully recently, when you were intensely focused. You were the most focused that you've been in the past week. It could be any activity. You can think of taking a test, working on a problem set, or a non-academic thing like playing video games or playing a sport. But think back to an activity when you were so intensely focused that time seemed to pass quickly. You were so immersed in the activity that you didn't notice what was going on around you. And you didn't have a single impulse to check your phone or to check social media. So take a few seconds to bring to mind an occasion like this, when you were so intensely focused on your activity. I'll just give you a couple seconds to relax, close your eyes if you want, and just bring to mind an activity like that. You can think back 2 weeks if you don't have one in a week. So we've all experienced this state. We call it being in the zone. Psychologists call it flow. Now here are 2 remarkable facts about flow. The first is that flow is not just a subjective mental state. It actually drives higher performance and higher intelligence. When we're in a state of flow, we think faster, we think more creatively, we form memories better, we recall memories better, we think faster. We literally have a higher IQ. And if we think about our lives as a whole, the more time we spend in flow, the more we'll accomplish, the more we'll grow, and the happier we'll be. So that's fact number 1 about flow, is that it's a state of higher performance and higher intelligence. The second remarkable fact about flow is that this ideal of achieving flow throughout the day in our tasks is actually possible. Flow is not something that's out of our control, something that just happens to us. It's actually something that we can achieve at will. At Elmbrook, we teach a simple and straightforward method for doing just this, for achieving flow at will. There are 3 steps that we follow in order to set the stage for optimal work, in order to enter into flow. The 3 steps are reframing, mindfulness, and setting a clear challenge. If you think back to a time when you experienced flow, I think you'll find that all of these steps were in some way present in the activity. So now let me describe each of these in greater detail. The first step to achieving flow is called reframing. Often when we sit down to perform a task, we view it in a negative light. We think of how it's difficult or boring or tedious. This is our automatic response. We'd rather be doing something completely different. This negative appraisal of the task makes us more susceptible to distractions and impulses. It means that we're more likely to give up on the task when things get difficult and to move on to something else. And the key to solving this problem is a technique called reframing. Reframing is when we deliberately discover the good, the opportunity present in the task. How is this task an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to practice, and an opportunity to serve? Seeing this task as an opportunity rather than a threat helps us to approach it with focus rather than to avoid it through distraction or procrastination. So consider the example of attending class. Suppose you dread a particular class. So every time you go into the class with a sense of dread, it's much more difficult to focus. Especially if you have your computer with you, you're going to be likely to be checking email, checking social media, not really processing the ideas that the professor is presenting. If you go in with this attitude, you're guaranteeing that it's going to be a miserable class. You're going to be constantly struggling with distractions and impulses, and you'll be unable to enter focus, get anything out of it, or put anything into it. Instead, reframing invites us to think of this class as a unique opportunity to practice. You can practice patience by patiently listening to the professor. You can practice understanding by trying to understand his point of view and his or her point of view and what they're conveying. You can practice being helpful by coming prepared and asking good questions to drive the class forward and make it as productive for everyone as possible. Or maybe you don't like writing papers. Every single one seems to drag on and on. So how can you turn that around? How is this, writing this paper, a unique opportunity to become a person who perseveres more, or a person with better attention to detail? How is this an opportunity to serve your classmates, or eventually in professional life, how can you make tasks opportunities to serve your company? So that's reframing, going from seeing the task as a negative to seeing it as a positive, by making an explicit positive appraisal, by seeking the good in the task, seeking the opportunity for growth, for practice, and for serving others. The second step in setting the stage for optimal work is doing mindfulness practice. Mindfulness practice settles your mind to overcome an ingrained habit of multitasking. Often we're drawn away from the tasks at hand by our interior monologue running on unfinished business. So this often takes the form of regrets about the past or worries about the future. So it's important before starting a task, especially at the beginning of the day, to take care to protect our attention through mindfulness practice. The fundamental idea of mindfulness practice is to focus your attention on just one thing that's occurring in the present moment. A common technique is to focus on your breathing. So here are 5 techniques that you can apply in your breathing to help promote mindfulness and mindful awareness as you approach your task. So first is to breathe into the lower part of your chest rather than your upper part. So you don't want to see your shoulders go up as you breathe. So you're breathing into your lower chest. Breathe in with as little effort as possible, and the exhale should be completely effortless. Second is think of your chest as a balloon and feel it inflating as you inhale and deflating as you exhale. Third is to breathe the tempo of your breath, the pattern, to breathe inhale 4 seconds, pause at the top, and pause at the bottom for 2 seconds. So you can think of this as like breathing along a rectangle. So you inhale 4, pause 2, exhale 4, pause 2. So the fourth thing is to pay attention to the sensations of the air as it goes in through your nose, as it expands your chest, and then again as you exhale through your nose. Fifth, finally, is to pay attention to your heart rate, particularly at the pause at the top of your inhale and again at the bottom of your exhale. And try to notice how it's faster at the top of your inhale and slowest at the bottom of your exhale. So before your first task of the day, take about 10 minutes to settle your mind, to promote this mindful awareness that will help you to engage your task with ordered attention. In subsequent tasks then, because you've prepared with this intense period of 10 minutes at the beginning of the day, you've prepared yourself and primed yourself so you don't have to take as much. You can only take 3 to 5 minutes in subsequent tasks to get the full effect. The final step that we need to enter into flow is to set a challenge. A challenge is a set amount of work to accomplish with a set deadline. The best deadline is between 45 and 90 minutes. A clear challenge will narrow the scope of our work and give us proper focus, and will also extract the intensity that we need to turn this focus into flow. Maybe your best time of work was when you were up against a deadline. Whether we're taking a test or writing a paper the night before it's due, this deadline extracts maximal intensity and gives us the adrenaline that we need to work at our best. But it's good to not have to wait till the night before your paper to write it all. That's the only time when you can work at your best. That would be a big problem. So you want to get good at practicing setting deadlines, setting difficult challenges on your own and honoring them. And so you can be self-motivated in extracting the intensity that you need to address tasks with flow. A crisp deadline means crisp focus. A fuzzy deadline means fuzzy focus. And we can challenge ourselves in many different ways. So think of how long it would take to write an outline for a paper. Maybe you can write an outline in an hour and a half. But now think about, you normally write a paper, or write an outline for a paper in an hour and a half. So now think about how long would it take for you to write that outline if you were focusing, working at 100%. How long would it take? Maybe you can now do it in an hour. And so that's your challenge. Or think of how long it would take to write an abstract for a paper. Maybe it would take an hour. Now think about how long would it take if you were working at your very best, if you were so intensely focused on that activity that nothing else even entered your mind. Maybe now you could do it in 45 minutes. So that's your challenge. Or think about class. How do you normally go to class? Are you distracted? Are you listening? Are you talking with friends, not paying attention to the professor? Now, how would it look to attend class at your very highest level of focus, trying to maximize your opportunity for growth? Maybe you wouldn't look at your laptop at all during class. Maybe you would pay attention to every single word of the professor and try to understand exactly their ideas that they're trying to convey. So that's your challenge when you attend class. You can think of a pole vaulter. What would you think if you saw a pole vaulter practicing day in and day out, vaulting into a mat but without setting a bar? You'd think that person was completely crazy. Without a bar, there's no measurement, there's no goals, there's no improvement. But as soon as you add the bar, then you have records, then you have an Olympic sport. The best place for a pole vaulter to set the bar, to summon maximal intensity, is 2 inches above their personal best. If you set it too high, it's going to be impossible to achieve, and they won't even try. If you set it too low, it'll be too easy, and they'll be able to complete it with no effort. So the best place to set the bar is just above their personal best. It's the exact same with work. To summon the maximal amount of intensity in a time of work, think of your personal best, think of what you normally do, and then stretch. Go a little bit higher. Challenge yourself. Setting a clear challenge, a challenge that will stretch us, is the primary way that we can grow through our work. If we want to grow over the course of our careers, we'll have to do it incrementally, a little bit in each task. Setting a challenge in each task is exactly how we do that, by constantly increasing the demands that we put on ourselves in work. We stretch ourselves, and we grow faster than we even think is possible. So how do we apply this in our lives concretely today? The most important first step is to aim for 1 golden hour a day. So what is a golden hour? A golden hour is a laboratory of focus, when you practice working at your very best. So this is how you start your day. You've just finished up your morning routine, and now you're ready to get down to work. So you take your most difficult task, the one that you've been dreading the most, the one that's going to challenge you the most. You sit down with the sole purpose of conquering this challenge, of working at your best, of exceeding yourself, and of focusing at your best. So you get rid of all distractions, you find a quiet place, you mute your phone, you turn off email and social media, and then you set the stage by going through these 3 steps. You reframe by discovering the opportunity in the task. You do mindfulness practice to settle your mind. And then you set a challenge, a set amount of work with a clear deadline that's going to challenge you to stretch yourself. And then you're ready to launch into the task with focus, with intensity, in a state of flow. If you practice these steps, you'll be able to attain flow at will and radically change the way that you work. The core of your work schedule is the golden hour. And it's so important to put your golden hour on a pedestal, to prime yourself and to prepare yourself for it with a solid morning routine, a morning routine that's carved in stone. The morning routine consists of 2 components. First, it starts with the heroic minute, getting up out of bed on time as soon as your alarm sounds. The primary reason to get up as soon as your alarm sounds, and a lot of our mentees had a lot of difficulty with this, but now all of them are doing it. And they've seen radical transformation as a result of it. And it's because of this reason, that getting up as soon as your alarm sounds demonstrates the frame that you're applying to the day. Demonstrates how you approach your day. Do you approach your day as a threat, in which case you want to hide in bed from it? Or do you approach your day as an opportunity, something where you can grow and serve? If you see it as a threat, you're going to hide in bed and snooze your alarm. If you see it as an opportunity, you're going to jump out of bed to tackle the day. The next item in your morning routine should be some form of exercise. Cardiovascular aerobic exercise has proven cognitive benefits that help us to think clearly and to have higher energy levels throughout the day. Even if you don't have time, it's still a great investment. Even if you think like your day is totally packed, you have like 18 hours of work, it's still better to work 17 and a half hours and exercise for 30 minutes, because the 17 and a half hours will be more productive. You'll get more done than you would have in the 18 hours. So as soon as possible after your exercise, you pick your most difficult task and use it for your golden hour. So you set the stage carefully, reframing, doing mindfulness practice, and then setting a clear challenge. And then you launch into the task. As soon as the deadline's up, you stop. If you keep going, your task will turn into a marathon. It will become a low-intensity marathon, and you'll be getting into what we call marathon mode. This is when we work for long periods of time with low intensity. So we start on a task, and then it drags on. And as it keeps going, maybe we check social media or we check email, and then we come back to the task. And then it gets really difficult, so we move on to a different task. And this low level of intensity in work can drag on the whole day. And then we get done with dinner and we realize we actually haven't completed all the work that we have to do, so we have to do more in the evening. And so the marathon continues. At Elmbrook, we advocate the polar opposite to this, which is the sprint approach to work. The sprint approach means that each time of work is an hour of intense focus. As soon as the deadline's up, you stop. Then you take 10 minutes off, you take a 10-minute break, time for silence or reading or taking a walk or listening to music. And then after 10 minutes, you jump right into the next time of work. Again, reframing, mindfulness, clear challenge. And you repeat that throughout the day. And if you practice this in the normal work hours, you'll be much more productive and you'll be able to make time for social and for family life. Now, many of the people that we're mentoring in the Elmbrook mentoring program, they learn these principles of optimal work to prepare for their study in university. But now I want to talk about how this applies in a business context. So let me tell you about some of the advice that we give for building a relationship in professional work with their employer. So anytime we talk about a formal relationship between people, like professor and student, employee and employer, it can be easy to miss the fact that most fundamentally, this is still a relationship between people. So all the same obligations, responsibilities, rights still apply. Any understanding of the relationship between manager and employee or employer and employee has to build on an understanding of the relationship between two people. And the ethical principle that shapes how we relate to each other is this: we seek the good of the other person in everything we do. When we treat the case of employer and employee, it cannot conflict with this basic understanding. It can only build on it and give it a particular form and context. It's common to miss that point and to treat the employer-employee relationship as something completely different from all our other human relationships. You might think, well, this is my employee, so I don't have to treat them like a real person. And that's why you see employers yelling at employees in ways that when they don't complete a task well, in ways that they wouldn't treat other people, or employees who will talk behind their manager's back to complain about their management decisions or strategic decisions in ways that they wouldn't necessarily talk about other people. The employee-employer relationship provides a context for broad ideals to be actualized. It provides the form that this will take. It cannot change the ideal. So let's consider that relationship as it takes place in a work context. So first, let's think about the duties of the employee. So the duty of the employee is to seek the good of the employer, the company. So what's the good of the company? The company is providing a service to the community in order to generate wealth for profit for the company and profit for investors. So the best the employee can do then is to help to solve the problems of the company and the community. And the higher they will do better, the higher the quality of their work. Hence, to work at their best is their primary responsibility in work. Let's look at the responsibilities of the employer. To do that, we have to ask, what are the goals of the employee? As we noted at the beginning of the talk, the employee is going to want to grow professionally in their habits. They want to develop a good work-life balance so that they can keep other areas of their life in check, so that they can maintain friendships, maintain a family life. The third is that employees want to find meaning and purpose in their work. So these are the duties of the employer then: to help employees grow, to help employees develop a solid work-life balance, and to help employees find meaning and purpose in their work. And I think that the employer can tackle all of these problems through the lens of optimal work. Optimal work, first of all, helps the employee fulfill his or her duties. Because they're working at their best, they're now contributing to the solutions that the company wants. Furthermore, through the process of reframing, we learn to bring our ideals into our tasks throughout the day, which helps us to find meaning and purpose in our work. We're more productive, which means that we have more time for other things in our life, which helps us find a more healthy work-life balance. And third, through training people to be challenging themselves in each hour of work, we're helping employees to grow, to challenge themselves in each time of work, and to stretch themselves and to exceed themselves and to grow and to develop better habits and better professional skills. So I think the Elmbrook mentoring program provides an interesting model for something that could be applied in a corporate context to help employees meet their responsibilities to employers and employers meet their responsibilities to employees. The last thing I want to talk about is unity of life. So I think there are three conventional views for how people view work. The first is to see work as a necessary evil. something that you have to get through, just slog through your day to make it to the evenings or the weekends when you can then do what you actually want to do. The second view is that of a workaholic, where work completely consumes you and you don't make time for family or social life. You push all those other obligations aside. The third view, which is common among university students and young professionals, is the work hard, play hard attitude, where you work super hard throughout the day, and then when it comes to the evening or the weekend, now it's time to party. All of these completely fail to integrate work into a healthy life. So look at work as a necessary evil. Clearly, work is then pushing against our other goals. If we'd rather have a day without any work, then how can work actually help us to be happy? Second, when work consumes us, it's pushing away our other goals. It's eclipsing our social and family lives. And third, in the work hard, play hard attitude, we're actually leading two different lives. We have two different parts of our lives that take up the majority of our time, or they can't both take up the majority, but each taking large parts of our time, that are pushing in completely different directions. Now, I think the solution to this is to unite work with these two ideals of excellence and service. So let's first consider excellence. If we think of work as a way of shaping ourselves to develop skills and virtues and become more excellent people, then we can see very clearly how it then translates over to our social and family lives. If work helps us become more patient people, more disciplined people, more understanding people, we're going to become better friends, we're going to become better family members. Second, if we form work in the spirit of service, if we see our goals in work as serving others, then it's very easy to unite it to our social and family lives, because our desires in friendship is to help the other person. Our desire in family life is to care about the other members of our family. So using these two ideals, excellence and service, helps us to make a unity of life, where all the big aspects of our life are pushing in the same direction. If the foundation of Elmbrook's mentoring program is focus and flow, the summit of the program is unity of life. This is where our mentees find happiness and fulfillment. In business, you have the great obligation of helping all those around you. You help investors by providing a return on their investment. You help your community by providing a useful service. But the greatest gift that you can give your coworkers and your employees is the gift of unity of life. Thank you. The question is to explain more clearly the idea of the golden hour and the purpose of it, and also why it's important to select your most difficult task for the golden hour. So I'll start with the second question, why you select the most difficult task for your golden hour. The reason for that is that often when we sit down for work, we get distracted by unfinished business. So we're running on regrets about the past or worries about the future. So that's what the second step of setting the stage deals with, that's what mindfulness deals with, settling your mind so that you can focus on the task. Now, one form of unfinished business is going to be your most difficult task. So if you leave it off for later in the day, it's going to be something that's constantly bugging you earlier in the day. And you're going to be, there's going to be a source of stress that you think, okay, I should be working on this, but I'm not, or ideas for it will come in your earlier times of work. So you want to get it out of the way as soon as possible so that it doesn't become unfinished business that then distracts you from your earlier tasks. And then second, so the general idea of why do a golden hour, what's the purpose? So the purpose of the golden hour is to just dedicate an hour to the process of focus. Focus is such an applicable skill. It applies to every single thing we do, whether it's conversations or work or class or writing papers or doing problem sets. So it's important to take that universal skill and deliberately practice it so that we can improve in it. And then that translates to improving every single other thing that we do. So the purpose of the golden hour then is to take time to practice those three steps and how to enter into the highest level of focus, which is flow, at will.
We're checking with Manolo if there's any more questions via text.
Okay, that's probably easy. Yeah.
Can I ask something in the meantime, or
We've got one from Spain, so we'll go to in here in a second.
Is it just a text? You can just say it if you want.
Yeah, but I have to make sure, we'll just restate the question. So I'll share the podium with you just for a moment. So we have another question from Spain.
Okay.
They're asking if nutrition has anything to do with it. So you mentioned exercise, and the common idea would be that the other end of that is what are you putting into your body with the energy that you're exerting out. So what does a healthy diet have to do with working at your best?
That's a solid question. It's a very tough question. I'm not an expert nutritionist by any means, but so I think the most important thing is the portion sizes that you're dealing with. So if you're eating too little, you're going to lose energy throughout the day, and so you won't have enough energy to address your tasks with effort and intensity. And then if you eat too much at particular times, that can then lead to lethargy, especially right after a task. Like I know if I eat way too much in a meal, I then want to take a nap immediately. So those are kind of the two main things that jump out as things to address to connect to optimal work and nutrition, is paying attention to the portion sizes and making sure that you're not eating too little so that you lose energy, and not eating too much to cause lethargy and things. What?
So to make sure everything gets recorded, I just have to stand with you at the podium for these things. But we're going to take one last question, and it'll be from our audience here. I believe, Cesar, you had a question. So why don't you ask it, and I can restate it. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I was still curious about the fact whether this increase in the level of performance of the mentees is due specifically to a personal decision in terms of routine aspects and decisions, or if there's a specific external advice in order to set these routine practices. I mean, just for example, you said you have to jump out of the bed at a due time. Is that decided by a mentee, or because it's not the same waking up at 4:30 than 8:30 a.m. So do they follow specific external advice, or do they do that by themselves?
Yeah, good question.
You want
to
just to make sure, because I don't think that the mic will pick up everything that happens beyond the podium. So Cesar had a very good question about, we noted that you can take the questions, so you in Spain can take these questions, pursue these ideals, and on a weekly basis improve with the same. But that idea of waking up in the morning, what time are you waking up? That idea of exercise, how are you exercising? Are those things that the mentors decide for the mentee? Is it all external? Or do you simply give them a platform and they decide these challenges for themselves?
Is that the question? Yeah, so we generally say just set your alarm for noon, and that way you'll always wake up as soon as your alarm sounds. I'm totally kidding. So yeah, that's a good question. So let's see, I think a lot of the general principles of how do you approach your work, these are things that the mentoring program has determined, especially based on our work with the mentees, to be effective things that help people. And then in the mentoring sessions, we'll work with the individual mentees to then put those into practice, given the concrete responsibilities that they have. So I think we present the ideals through the questionnaire of this is what we're striving for, and then how that actually manifests itself concretely in the person's schedule is up to a back and forth between the mentee and mentor. Does that make sense?
All right, we'll take one last question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have any data of people after the mentoring process? So, because I assume these only last for 1 month or 2 months or whatever it is. And after that, do you still have data if they are maintaining these habits and so on?
So to restate the question, as you've already heard it, Sharif, they're asking here do we have any data from people who are no longer engaging with the mentees? So we would understand that this is after 1 month, 2 months, maybe 3 months of mentoring, but maybe after these students graduate, Sharif, within the Elmbrook mentoring program, do we have any idea of how these people are doing outside in the real world without the mentor guiding them through these ideals or without taking the inventory?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't have general trends on that. We have individual cases of people who receive the first 5 weeks, and then after the program, we're able to maintain the habits. And then another interesting case is people who never receive the mentoring, but actually only take the inventory, and we've seen pretty stable increases there as well. But yeah, that's a very interesting question to like collect more data on and look at in more detail.
Perfect. So on that note, we'd like to thank everyone who connected with us. And I invite everyone over there, even though we can't hear you and everyone here, to give us a big round of applause for Sharif.